Good morning. Today we're going to be taking a look at XRP, some Bitcoin futures, the Russell, and the Sigma coin. So, all right, so we're getting there, guys. I think this was the bottom late last night for me, around 2:30 a.m. I got my orders filled after being stopped out a little bit higher up. So I'd been accumulating through here, kind of bounced a little bit. Ended up this liquidation wick right here. This is the one that came down and got me on my stop that I'd left right here below this level. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And then ultimately I realized we're going to be rolling over one more time for that fifth wave wick to close out the liquidity of everybody who put their stop right here. So I just waited, and then I just bid this whole area down here off of one of our negative 1 deviation VWAPs and this fib. So let's break down some of the levels here, and then we'll go over this structure and how I am incredibly bullish based off of what we have here. So, all right, so starting with just kind of a general view, you have the liquidation cascade to the left. That you can kind of just ignore-ish as far as TA going forward because it's done, right? We had our triangle, our collapse, bounce, retest, that's kind of finishing up everything. And then what we were looking for is a 5-wave impulse off the lows, which we then received right here. And then we ended up doing what was initially interpreted as a flat, but now because of yesterday's price action, wicking and coming in and doing a new low below this level right here that we had set back at 240. Ultimately, we ended up having a 5-wave move down, an ABC up, and then now this is how I knew that the final fifth was going to come in as soon as we closed price action below the low to the left. So that's now completed the 5-wave move, and now the expectation going forward is as we zoom in here on the 5-minute, we can actually see that we have our first kind of almost parabolic move, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For completion of this leg here. Actually, there's the fifth. ABC down, ABC up, and here's the flat that we were looking for with a bounce retest. So the expectation is we should continually set higher lows going forward from here, now that the majority of the gap to the left has been closed, and this e-liquid wick is just a stop / liquidity hunt to the downside. So on here, let's go over now, zoom back out, and we're going to go over some of the metrics that we're using to kind of help us get an idea of the levels that we needed to be trading on. So we're going to go to the 30-minute, starting with just this sub-region here. Actually, I'll go back down. So starting in the sub-region here, the orders to put back in this morning to kind of finish out I got some of them filled, not everything filled. So I came back and I refilled over in this region, which was still lower than where I was stopped out at right over here. So filled here because what I did is I dropped the automatic VWAP tool here on this spot right here. And if you're wondering where that is, it's under your measurements tab, and it's this one, anchored VWAP. So dropped it right here, knew our deviation range, and expected that this volume gap was going to be filled with this -1 deviation in purple here being the area that was tagged. And now we can break out, back test, and get out of here, right? And so this would be the completion of the flat. There's still, of course, maybe one more breakdown to 237.5, which we could see possibly playing out here with the completion of this gap close down here, if this is in fact an ABC rather than a flat structure. But considering we already went 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this fifth wave, ABC down, ABC up, this part right here makes me think that it's going to be a flat because that's ABC at this moment, but we'll find out together. So, and this higher low thus far. So anyway, that's the short-term price action, how the VWAP tool is utilized, and you can drop it. I normally just drop it right on the lows, just like that, or the highs, depending on which direction you're moving through. So, all right, so that's that. Now, when we zoom out, we had a bigger VWAP that we were looking at, and here's the 1 hour. So on the 1 hour, we had, again, dropped the VWAP on the initial low level that we have. We had the initial breakout, our 5-wave move, moving us all the way into overextended territory on this fair market value. Then we came back down to fair market, this is 95% away from this white line in volume. And then we moved back up, back tested the +1 deviation, which is 65% away from the white line. And we come back down, and then we went down and we back tested the -1 level, which then gave us our bounce. So that's kind of what we were looking at. Now, be noting that if we lose this low of 231.41, this should be in fact the completion of our level being in and done, and we will have to actually go lower and look at a new count because we have reset this wave 1 count off the lows. So now so that's basically where the trade went last night, which was the -1 deviation. And I knew we were near the 886 fib, and we end up closing all candles above the 786. So even though we wicked down, it was just a liquidity and stop grab, and then they bounced and we're on our way. So so that's the VWAP from here. And then finally, we already mentioned it, but we're going to talk about it again. We have this fib placed on the low and the identified 5-wave move to the upside, which we then actually go to the flat higher high is where I end up setting the fib at. And you can see that with this price action, we came back down to the 786 and a brief wick down and front ran slightly to the 886 that ended up pulling us there. So you can kind of surmise that it roughly was in that zone. Front running was great, and then that media absorption was also great because somebody was waiting there for that. So we're tooling around on that fib, and then finally over the fib we actually have this stepping green line, which is our 50-week moving average. And so we're just right on top of it, playing with the 50-week moving average, getting accumulated all over here, wicking down and above and then down. We're just building support on it with the expectation that we'll swing to the upside. So that is primarily all of the stuff that we're just kind of watching, and helped us ascertain this shorter time frame level of this -1 deviation here zoomed in, helping us get all the way there. So now, what does this overall pattern look like here? Well, we just have our 5-wave moves and our ABC, and then we set a higher low, and then we should start marching out of here. Well, where have we seen that before? Here you go. So here's your 5-wave move off the lows back in June of the 25, and 4 months ago, when we had that liquidation that dropped us way down here. Then we had an ABC down, and right there in that green box we have the breakout and the back test of a higher low. So if we come back to the price action here, there's your ABC completion of a larger degree, and we have a breakout back test. So the expectation is that now that this back test is in, we should start shooting out of here, and at minimum we should easily come back up to the top of the range, which would take us into 260s again here. So if we move back to this, you can see that we get back up into that level and chop, and then we actually have a liquidity grab to the upside, another chop, and then we start moving out of here. So so we're moving along pretty nicely, and we should expect that this is now the lows. So the bottom signal is in, based off of our expectations of a higher lows being set. Again, there could be one more swing lower with an ABC, so just be mindful for that. And then ultimately we just move along and we're out. So now, what makes me think that this is the bottom? Well, this final rollover fifth on XRP was what the count gave us when we set this lower low here yesterday, and then this bounce, and then this now fourth wave came in. Well, Bitcoin's futures, this is what we've been looking at for a long time. We've been monitoring this, and what's funny is if we had even if you just only had this chart, you would have never known that that liquidation cascade had occurred, because it occurred when the futures market closed. So there was no indication that we had a flash crash that was through here. Now, what's interesting is this gap was the final piece of the puzzle that we needed to close in order to ensure that the price action was good to go, and we were all finished. Well, last night when the fifth wave came in for XRP, lo and behold, we did the same thing for Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin futures closed that gap, came back up, back tested the gap, and confirmed that it was gone. So assuming we hold this level from here, and it's likely that we will, based off of just kind of the shorter time frames, having the same breakout and the same ABC down, and now we have the higher low being set. If we can maintain this and hold this level and start working our way out of here, we are done with this Bitcoin area, and we effectively are finished with down. And now the only direction that's left, with all the gap closes and liquidity being swept to the downside, is up. And here's your higher gap right up here, about 126. So it might be an aggressive move back up to the 126 region, and with it will come a lot of the other assets as we just start getting out of here, right? Because that was the end. So now, what else do we see that's giving us some confluence? Well, here is the Russell, the small caps. So the small caps have been organically setting new higher highs over and over and over again. So if we zoom out, we can see that we had our initial high right here, and then we had our secondary high back in November of 24. Since then, we got back up to them, couldn't hold it, got back up, rejected, and back tested the 886 fib for where this local move was. And now we've shot all the way back up, moved out, and we've been continually, as of yesterday, setting new highs. And today, when we zoom in, we can see that the small caps are actually back testing a higher low on top of the high that we just had. So they're just confirming support on this prior high. Of course, we may come back down here and do that, but as of right now, this is a back test just of that prior high, and we're just moving organically out of here for this small caps, which means risk on, and everything's going to be bid. That's a tiny guy. So additionally, when we look at the bids, here is XRP's heat map over the last week. So here's your liquidation cascade, taking out everybody who was over here. Then there was a lot, and they got them all. And then you have this grind through this region, building up the longs and building up the shorts. Well, the shorts have absolutely piled in, and there you are, liquidity at 266, and like we were talking about, a return to the prior highs would take us right up to this +2 deviation of the VWAP, and it would be 266. So I'm expecting us to move up into this region and then begin that consolidation chopping all through here that will ultimately result in price action go up. So here's this, and then there's your chop. So we would expect it to get back up in this region and kind of chop through here and confirm all this is support. And then these VWAPs will work their way up, and we're out of here. So this is the quick move back up into this 260s is what I'm expecting. So, all right, so that's this kind of schematic that we're running on. And then in addition to that, there's a lot in this video apparently today. We also have the whales. So the whales had been aggressively accumulating XRP, got up to the top here, and then they said, you know what, I'm going to take a break. So then July, they took a break. They got it down to August, and they just kind of slightly accumulated. But then as soon as we got to September, bam, they shot back up again. And now they've done a nice little bull flag here where they're continually setting higher lows all through here. And now they've broken out, and they've set a higher low and then another higher low. So if this organically continues, the whales that are holding 1 million or more XRP in their wallets are massively increasing with a bull flag right here at the top of the range, getting ready to break out. And I think the FOMO of chasing this thing is on its way very quickly, especially when price action starts to recover. So, and then lastly, with that, we've been seeing Sigma getting accumulated as well. So Sigma here it's just been grinding continually off that low and setting higher lows, and now it's confirming support from where we were before. And we've been watching this 3-day. We are getting very close for the 3-day to print into a bullish pattern. And once we see the blue over the orange, we should be able to see Sigma start working its way out of here. And the multiplier effect of this asset is absolutely wild, because once we see from its current price action, let's just assume we make it to, let's just say we go back to the prior all-time high. There's your 11x. Let's just say we make it to the 236. There's your 24. Then here's your 1.382. Now you're looking at 4x, and then this is the one that's most likely is the 1618 for an impulsive move. Takes you up 81x, and then lastly, you've got yourself the expected target for our wave 3 completion, which would be a market cap of 1.63 billion for our wave 3. Then we consolidate for 4, and then we actually have a potentially even higher level that we can hit for our wave 5. So Sigma is definitely going to have some amazing potential here. I am for it, and the fact that this is one of the top meme coins on the XRPL and is currently sitting a sub-million market cap with the expectation of XRP just getting crazy out of here, this is very, very bullish. So so really at this point, as long as we continue to set higher lows and we reclaim this level pretty quickly into the 266 region, and ultimately I'd like to see this get reclaimed up here in the 281s and just take back the entire move of what we've done. I think that's going to be incredibly bullish, and we're going to see the Sigma coin and other assets that are on layer 2s massively benefit from the yield through the AMMs, and the AMMs themselves pushing price action higher along with buying. So yeah, this might be the absolute everything rally that everyone's been waiting for, and it looks like it. So as of right now, I personally can't see any negative counts. I mean, if we start setting lower lows and we start rolling over more and more, well, then I'll change my view. But as of right now, with a bullish wave 1, wave 2 completion with a breakout backtest with a higher low, coupled with a potential fractal that moves us back to the top of the range and even higher all the way up to where we were, makes me think that this explosive price action will be coming very soon, and we are within probably a week or so of where we wanted to be. So you figure this took from the top, let's just do a quick measurement. From the top here, this took us a total of, to the low, what is that, 2 days? Yeah, it's 2.5 days. So we got 2.5 days, and then we go to here, and we say, okay, well, how long was this guy? This guy was, where do we go, measurement tools. This guy took us, oh wait, no, from here to there. Yeah, there we go. To there we go. So we know our highs and our highs. That was 2 days. So if we just push that forward and we go here, 2 days, within a day, we should be back up into this region, and potentially within 3 days, we should be all the way back up to the top of the range that before we broke down, is how I'm anticipating it. Not financial advice, so that's what we're expecting. So I'm thinking the next day or two should be absolutely massive, returning all the way back up to this region. Then we chop for another day or so, and then we get ourselves all the way back up to here of the 282 region, and then that's where you're going to see a lot of moment, right? That will be where we determine if we're going to continue higher or not, but we got to at least get back to this gap close to test this demand and see if there's buyers that step in or sellers. So, but so far we know that the whales are a buy-in. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for this longer video, and we will check in tomorrow.